Hello, everyone, and welcome to today's webinar. My name is Philip Radukic. I'm a business development manager and senior consultant at CI Experts. Today, we'll be continuing our short series that introduces you to the new AppControls feature integrated in the upcoming UPV NT. In today's session, we'll focus on some of the use cases that are possible using AppControls. These are going to be just examples, so it's not fully grown solutions yet, just giving an impression what power actually AppControls have. It can simplify your daily work, streamline your daily workflows, save time, and reduce costs in your company. But all in all, please note that this session will be recorded, and we'll send you the link to the recording via email afterwards. During the webinar, feel free to use the GoToWebinar questions panel to state your questions, and I'll try to answer as many as possible after the live demo. If I'm unable to address some of your questions during the webinar, I'll respond to you via email. But now, let's take a look at today's agenda. So we'll have a quick introduction to UPV VNT, or especially to the AppControls, and have a quick overview and recap of the first webinar, stating some of the challenges and risks. And we'll have a live demo of 3 solutions that we picked. Use case number 1 would be simulation. Use case number 2, working with packages. And use case number 3, a live data integration. So let me give you a brief introduction as to why we developed AppControls and what they actually are. In the past, many of our customers started integrating UPV into their existing ecosystems, requiring some interfacing with UPV. By providing deep linking and a very powerful API, we've managed to integrate many different solutions with UPV. This has made UPV, at least in my opinion, far more than just a viewer, has made UPV an easy-to-use integration platform for digital twins. Alas, as there are many definitions of a digital twin, pretty much as many as there are implementations of those, the requirements for integration have been rising more and more each day. Or to put it in different words, ask 5 people what a digital twin is, and you'll get 7 answers. Customization through the existing channels inside UPV didn't seem to be enough to live up to the goal we set for ourselves, and that's being the best platform to visualize all types of data in a user-friendly, integrative way, and thus providing a base for a centralized single point of truth. Additionally, every customer comes with their own requirements to customization, software environments, and visualization, and probably there's really no one-size-fits-all solution for each and every customer or use case, unless we decided to basically put all possible appliances into UPV, which would come at the cost of usability of the software. So instead, we decided to give our customers the freedom to find their own solutions by creating a way to include custom developments as easy as adding a plugin or extension to UPV. But let's dive a bit deeper into it by looking at the challenges and risks. So the challenges, and if you want to see some more details about the challenge, you can also view the first part of this webinar series. First of all, we have numerous different applications used out in the field. So what are the risks here? Well, first of all, it's a very high training and implementation effort, which is time consuming, because working with so many different applications with different UIs, the staff needs to be trained with every single one of them to be able to do their daily work. And the other problem is that integration might be difficult, if possible at all. So risk here is the users having to switch between the applications and transfer data in between applications. So this might be copy paste, this might be exporting and importing, but at every single step here, we kind of run into the risk of data loss. And especially this data handling between applications is most of the time a very difficult task. So we have possible discrepancies due to manual transfer of data in whichever form, like I mentioned before. So what were our solutions by now? First of all, deep linking, which is easy to integrate. It works with basically iOS, Android, Windows, browser-based viewing, but it's only a one-way road. So we don't have any responses or feedback to the system that's basically calling these links. And with browser-based viewing, we also have a bit different approach. So you could choose either to use the web launcher with deep links or create HTTPS instead of UPV API deep links, which have a different syntax there. Then we have the API and our API calls, which is a very powerful solution. It allows a real two-way communication. So for example, if you select an object, it can give feedback to the calling application what the selected object is, or querying certain attributes. Or for example, telling the calling system, hey, listen, the custom attribute has changed. Please write that into the database or similar. So which is not necessarily a downside, but it requires a separate application to be running in parallel to UPV. And especially if you're integrating two systems or an additional systems to UPV, you might have that separate application running in between, like an interpreter. And the biggest limitation with the API calls, you can't really use the API on Android or iOS devices. So finding out that we're actually on a really good way here, but still have some limitations, we added a new approach, which is the UPV AppControls, which directly integrate into UPV. So they can be called in a window inside UPV and run completely embedded, and thus can communicate with UPV in a unified way, regardless of the operating system used. This means it's available on all platforms, Android, iOS, Windows, and browser-based viewing, which again, on the other hand, can even run under Linux or Mac OS or whichever system you use, as long as it has a functioning HTML5 enabled browser, you're ready to go. The app controls are fully customizable. This means you can create any type of menu, solution, visualization you wish with data coming from any source you define and being able to visualize in any possible way that you used from the UPV. So to round all of this up, it has security by default integrated. So you can manage permissions for the API usage. It can be saved into the model, and it can actually have a whitelist and blacklist of applications, in this case, web applications, to open. So if you're wondering why I'm mentioning web applications, again, let me point out the first part of our webinar where we explained how things work in the background. But this being said, let's actually switch to a live demo and look at some of the use cases I promised you, and first of them being simulation. Just give me a second. GoToWebinar is being nice to me. Give me a second, please. Some technical issue here, obviously. Here we go. What you see here is current view and current development status of the upcoming UPV NT, standing for new technology. And one of the core use cases inside the core features of UPV NT is the AppControls. So as Eric has shown you in the previous webinar, how to add them to the project, let's look at some of the actual use cases we have for this. One of them is simulation. So please note that UPV is not a simulation software by itself, but we can, for example, through the AppControls, connect to simulation software that is actually giving the simulation results, and starting from there, giving the feedback by colorizing objects in UPV. What we see here is a pipeline that's fully pressurized and in operation. So what happens if I, for some reason, choose to close this valve? So it gives feedback to the simulation software. The simulation software gives back the new states of the pipelines. In this case, it's inactive, but still pressurized. If I open this valve again, we're basically back to where we started off, with the exception that if I now shut this valve here, now this part is still pressurized but inactive, and we have a constant flow in the yellow pipeline here. And if I now choose to open the drains, once both drains are open, we actually see that the status has switched to drained, safe to remove. So this can be used for various simulations. This is just one example showcase, but this can be also connected to a logout tagout system, to simulation systems, to show the effect, what happens if I now shut or open a certain valve, and which measures would I have to take, for example, to isolate this control valve on the bottom and to replace it. But what other use cases do we have? Let's close this AppControl and pick another one. So going to files. So this is basically a packaging mock-up that we did with a partner company here, but it's also great to show some work package statuses here. For example, by selecting this pumps and vessels in this work package and saying, okay, what's my engineering status for these? And hitting show, it will colorize the objects accordingly. So we see both pumps and the vessel have been released from engineering. What about material availability? So again, checking, now we see all of them are allocated. And last but not least, what is the installation work package status? Let's visualize that one. And now we see, okay, the green ones complete, the yellow ones need to be checked. Probably installation is currently undergoing, or it's already been finished, but still needs to be checked if everything has been completed accordingly. And now let's do this on a larger scale, but just selecting all packages we have here and going again by engineering status first. So we see that a few parts are still not released. There are red ones, marked red here. And what's the material availability for the selected packages? So we already see some of them are unavailable. obviously because also for the pipelines, the engineering hasn't been cleared yet. And again, the installation work package status. So we see we don't have any information for this vessel. The railings, the handrails are currently on the status installation, and the yellow ones still need to be checked. But this gives us a very quick access to actually visualize what has been done or not. But what else could we do? So this is basically one way reading out of a database or data management system in the background and visualizing it. But can we also write back? So one of the solutions, for example, would be to just select additional objects to add them. Let's go, for example, all the way up to the control valve, including the drains, and add these to new package. So all I have to do is add a plus. Say this is pipeline package 0002, and the description is pipeline. And now add selector from UPV. And once we go back and refresh, we should actually have this package added to our list here. This could then be transferred to the actual package managing system, so the values could be adapted there. We can even close this here, and once we reload the thing, and let me use my fake login here again to see what happened to the packages. I can visualize them easily again by showing their status. And since we don't have a running system behind this currently, this still stays black. Okay, so what would be the third and last use case I would really love to share with you today? It's the live data integration. So as soon as I start the system up, you can actually see certain objects colorizing. Red, yellow, green, blue. What does this mean? So for every single one of these objects, we have set warning and error limits for temperature and pressure. This information is stored in either a database or coming directly from IoT live sensor data. So this means whenever a value changes, more or less instantly, we will get the feedback and update. So when I click on D240, either directly or just by clicking on it in this warning list here, I see the temperature is at 85. Warning level, so yellow, would be 70 or higher, and error level or critical error level would be with more than 80. So let's simulate some of the information changing in the background. So we can see that the pressure is actually quite normal until now. Now it went to yellow. Why is that? Because the value went up to 75 from 68%, and thus exceeding the warning level limit. And all warnings are also listed here. And this is the currently selected object. So let's say we send somebody out in the field to resolve the temperature issue. So now you see the D240 switched to yellow because temperature, which was red, is now in the normal region, but pressure is still too high. And only after the pressure has actually been reduced again below the warning level, turns green again and disappears utterly from this list here. So this way we can simulate, not simulate, visualize data coming in real time from the field to assess a situation. This can be combined with any type of control room software, with any type of databases and or IoT inputs to give a full visualization of the system. So this was a really quick overview over some basic appliances with the app control. So there are probably hundreds more out there. What makes these app controls so special is that you actually don't have to rely or depend on us to provide you these functionalities. It's more or less like an integration toolkit, allowing you to develop solutions on your own, or to put it simple, you can compare it to Microsoft Office or Excel that probably most of you are working with on a day-to-day basis. If a certain function is not available in Excel, instead of actually waiting for Microsoft to implement that one function that might even be only interesting for me, I could just go into the VBA macros and write a quick macro that will solve this problem for me and have it done and over with in an instant. And that's the approach that we actually try to follow with UPV app controls. If you have further questions as to how to implement this and how it's programmed, feel free to, as I mentioned before, watch the first part of our App Controls webinar series, or contact us at Info Support, and we'll be glad to assist you once the App Controls are released. And before that, ask you just for a little bit more of patience. It's coming very soon.